Tim, do I have a pointer thing or? We'll give it a couple more minutes because I think we got. Well, I know I just got a message from somebody that's still coming, so. You know who I'm talking about. Hey, how come that one screen is different than the others? It's interesting. How do I got nothing. Do I need to turn something on? Well, I thought so. I got nothing even blinking on it. Are the batteries good? Where'd Hayden go? You're fine. See, there's nothing even blinking on it. Mm-hmm. What's up, dude? You missed a great day to be on the golf course, by the way. Tim, maybe kill another bay of lights for me. I hate to ask everybody to do this, but maybe let's move up a section here because I think there's some things you're going to have trouble seeing if we don't. Sorry about that. That's weird. I didn't notice it like that this morning.
No, I just did it for some reason.
I'm gonna go flip a light off. You know what's really weird is that on YouTube, like on my app, it says something failed and won't show me anything. But then if I go online and just punch it in, it works fine. So I don't know what that's about. Go ahead and kill this set of bay lights for me, Tim. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, thanks everybody for coming out tonight, and I'm going to do my best to kind of run through. I'm going to do my best to kind of run through everything, and I timed this out this week during the week, and I've cut stuff, added stuff, and it's going to take me close to an hour to show you everything, but please feel free at any point to stop me and ask any question you want to ask. I want to give you as much information as possible, but I don't want to overwhelm you. And I know Todd and I talked about this a little bit too. And I know we have a number of folks that are not here tonight that have been reaching out, seeing if they can get their hands on all this. But I appreciate all of you guys coming. So let's talk about Pine Island mission trip this summer. And as I've said on Sunday mornings, right now the date that our leadership team agreed on was July 14th-ish to July 22nd-ish, and let's talk about the ishes, okay? There's kind of 4 different travel plans, and I know that's where everybody wants to get to first, but I promise we'll get to it at the end. But really the travel plan kind of determines what the issues are, so to speak, all right? So let's just begin, and I'm going to start off by making sure we're all on the same page about where Pine Island is. I know that's a small picture, but basically, if you are familiar with Florida, if you look over on this side, this is Fort Myers right in here, and this is Naples right here, and this is Pine Island. And Kelly, you feel free to stop and correct me if at any point I say something wrong. Now, technically, all of this is considered Pine Island, but Pine Island is broken up into two parts, and I couldn't find a map that told me what those two parts were, but you have a northern part and a southern part, which they refer to in separate names, okay? All right, so that's where we're at. Let's talk about the demographic of Pine Island for a few minutes. And I don't know how to put this any differently than it is, but basically, Pine Island is composed of two different people groups. You have really, really rich people that do not want to be noticed, that are basically in hiding. They want to act inconspicuous. And then you have really, really poor people, and many of them are, and Mr. Sawyer could probably help us out with some of this tonight, but they are a part of the Dreamers Act. They are kids that were brought here by their parents illegally, but they are now here as a part of the DREAM Act under the Obama administration, but they can't go anywhere. They're just stuck. They have no American citizenship, but so if they were to try to leave the country, they would not be able to get back in. But they're here legally. They're not going to be deported or anything like that. They are given Social Security cards. They're allowed to work and things like that. But they're just kind of in a state of limbo. Did I do a pretty decent job of explaining that, Mr. Sawyer? And by the way, we have Jesus who joined this morning. He is a prime example of that. He was brought over in the country when he was 1 year old. And right now that he has married Jordan, he's in the process of trying to get a marriage waiver and begin the process of becoming an American citizen. But they're just in this state of limbo where they're not really allowed to do anything. They can't really travel. They can travel anywhere they want in the United States, but if they travel back to Mexico, they can't come back into the United States. They're just stuck, for lack of any better way to say it. Some of our leadership committee had asked about, whether this was Cuban Mexicans, whether this was, Cuban Hispanics or Mexican Hispanics, and the answer to that is the majority of them are Mexican Hispanics. One of the things the pastor talked about down there with their Hispanic ministry is that the Cuban Hispanics and Mexican Hispanics do not get along at all, and so primarily Pine Island, if you meet Hispanic people, they are Mexican Hispanics, and they are there working in the palm tree factory, or not factories, but farms. And so they make a very, very small amount, minimum wage, and I'll talk about that more when we get into some photos and look at some things, but they're just kind of there, and they do not have a lot of options. They're just pretty impoverished. And so there's no middle class in Pine Island. When you get there, you're going to see this. You are either really, really rich, and you have gone there to spend your retirement days and try not to be seen and noticed because you didn't want to go to Boca Raton or Naples or wherever, or you are really, really poor, and there is absolutely no middle ground in between the two, okay? All right, so let's talk about First Baptist in Pine Island. I'll show you some photos in a little bit. So the people that we're going to serve, Pine Island First Baptist Church is a church of about 180 people that was nearing collapse about 10 years ago when Pastor James Olson went there. When Jim Olson went there, they were actually down to some 20 members, and that was it. And they were in the process of deciding whether or not they were going to continue to be a church because they had a hard time getting anybody that wanted to go and pastor there, which is hard for me to believe. Listen, I'm feeling the Lord's calling to Pine Island. It's a beautiful place, but anyway, it's just a small little 20-member church, and when Pastor Jim went there about 10 years ago, they've expanded to about 180 members. Most of their members will not be there while we are there because they are mostly retired folks, and they travel. And when it gets hot in the summer, they go somewhere like Missouri where it's colder, and so they get out of Dodge really fast. So what he shared with us, and Todd can kind of back this up, was that a lot of times in the summertime they may only have 50 or 60 people because everybody's traveling so much. So just an interesting demographic of the church. Pastor Jim Olson, for those that might be interested, He's originally from Chicago, Illinois. He was called to pastor approximately 10 years ago down there. He's a graduate of Moody Bible Institute, which is in Chicago. He's a NAM regional director, which means he works for the Southern Baptist Convention with churches, planting churches. And he is a former pastor in DOM throughout the Midwest. Before he went to Pine Island, he was actually in Iowa, I believe, is the answer to that question. So how did we meet him and how did we come to know the people of Pine Island First Baptist Church is a pretty convoluted story, which ultimately comes down to we had reached out to what we called Director of Missions or DOMs, and I had requested from a couple of people that I knew, hey, we want to do a mission trip this summer. Who might you have on your radar? And they got us in contact with several churches, and then through the process of talking to those churches, we really liked what we heard. First, I really liked what I heard from Pastor Jim down at Pine Island, and then I brought Todd in, and we had a three-way phone call, I guess, one day for about an hour, hour and a half. He liked Pastor Jim, and so we decided, hey, this really seems to fit. And so some of the other churches we looked at, and we will probably look at in the future, we were asked to maybe consider going to Woodstock, Georgia. Anybody ever heard the name Johnny Hunt? Once upon a time was a big, big name in Southern Baptist life, kind of fallen out of favor of late, but he pastored First Baptist Woodstock, a church of about 17,000 people, one of the mega churches in the SBC. The person who took over for him is a good friend of mine from college by the name of Jeremy Morton, and he got us in contact with two churches that they have planted in the Atlanta and Woodstock area, and he asked us maybe if we could consider going there. So we may look at something like that next summer, but just through all those process of elimination, meeting, talking with pastors, we really liked what was going on in Pine Island, which I'll show you in a few moments, and we decided, hey, we feel like this is where the Lord's leading us. And so Todd and I got on the phone with Jim, and he confirmed that as well. He liked Jim, and so we said, hey, let's see if we can make this happen, all right? So that's kind of the roundabout story of how we met them and where we got there. All right, why Pine Island, which kind of gets into some of our ministry. And I'm sorry if I face away from you, but I've got to read some of this as well because I don't have these notes in front of me. But on September the 28th, 2022, Hurricane Ian, you may remember, made landfall off the west coast, just off the coast of Florida. And it began a destructive path down the west side of Florida, covering Fort Myers, as well as pieces of Naples and so on and so forth. You may not know because these things didn't directly impact us, but it is the third costliest weather disaster in the history of the United States since 1935. It was a very major weather disaster for them. It was originally a Category 3 hurricane, and Ian strengthened actually as it got into the Gulf of Mexico and became a Category 4 hurricane, bordering on Category 5 at times by the time it made landfall off the west coast of Florida. In total, there were 160 confirmed deaths from Ian, and 149 of them happened in Florida. And of those 149, over 100 of them were on Pine Island. So roughly 75% of the deaths that came from Hurricane Ian came from Pine Island, Florida. If that gives you some idea off the bat of how destructive Hurricane Ian was and where we're going, 75% of the deaths happened right here on Pine Island. So that tells you what faced the bulk of it. What made Ian so deadly was not so much its size and brute force, but what Hurricane Ian did was it essentially decided to camp out over Pine Island, and it stayed there for a lengthened period of time. Instead of a hurricane just moving through, basically Ian said, I'm just going to sit here for a while. And what it ended up doing was causing these 15-foot surges, which we will show you some pictures of later, that just annihilated. A 15-foot surge on an island is a big deal. Just annihilated the bulk of the island. In fact, when we were asking Pastor Jim about these things, he said if you pictured a hurricane as a donut, Ian was like the donut hole. It was the part that normally is missing. And what it did was it just landed on Pine Island and just stayed there. It just refused to move. And what it did was it actually continued to strengthen while it was over Pine Island so that it just created utter chaos and havoc. And so The National Guard, the federal government, as well as Florida, did everything that they could to try to get everybody out of Pine Island. I'm going to show you some things in a few moments that kind of add some context to this. But they did everything. It was a forced evacuation. But there were still some that decided they were going to stay around. And so obviously that's where the majority of the deaths end up coming. And specifically Pine Island, the worst of it is all on the northern end, which we'll show you some photos of. Brought a 15-foot storm surge to the island, which decimated it, including what's called the, and I'm going to mispronounce it, I'm sorry, but the Matlaka Bridge, which will be pictured later, which officials, if you were watching Fox News at the time, said that that bridge would take literally months to repair. They estimated that bridge was going to take 8 months. So people in Pine Island were literally believing that they were evacuated from their homes and not going to be able to return for 8 months. Pastor Jim was staying in Boca Raton at the time, and he said that he and his wife had made every plan not to be able to go back home for 8 months. Just imagine that for a moment. No church, no going home. There's no way to get there. But what ended up happening was Florida was activated and on the move, and that bridge was made usable within 1 week. So I added the punchline: if you are not a Ron DeSantis fan, do not tell the people of Pine Island, because they think Ron DeSantis is next to Jesus. What he did in Florida during Hurricane Ian was so monumental that these people, there's a reason why DeSantis won Florida. Not to become so political tonight, but there's a reason DeSantis won Florida the way he did. And Pine Island is one of those reasons why, because that bridge that was expected to take 8 months, they were able to start using it a week later. Now, having said that, and as I show you some of the damage, when they say usable, let's be clear. Miss Kelly and I left our hotel on Monday morning, and it was 5 miles from Pine Island First Baptist Church, and it took us an hour and 13 minutes to get there. And the majority of that time was stuck on the bridge trying to get over there because of the amount of construction that is still going on, as you're going to see. So all the ladies in the room that are going to help with cooking and want to go shopping and all of that stuff, and you're going to say things like, we're going to bring stuff with you, that's a dumb idea. It's not going to happen. Also, there's one grocery store on Pine Island. It is 1 block away. We're going to use it. We're going to overpay for groceries, but it's going to be what we're going to use unless you are willing to spend 3 hours driving every day to go 5 miles. That's what we're using, okay? I mean, it is that serious of a situation, all right? All right, so let me keep moving forward. Let's take a look at Pine Island to do some pictures here, and I'm going to start with the church, all right? Here's the church. Doesn't that look amazing? This is just behind the fellowship hall. I'll show you some photos here in a little bit. This is the fellowship hall right here. I've got the sanctuary to my back. This area over here is where they're currently meeting. You can see the chairs set up underneath. And if there's bad weather, they're not meeting. But fortunately, so far, they've been able to meet. Basically, what happened when Hurricane Ian came in, and I've not showed you the bad pictures yet, is a window was broken out in the church, and when that happens and a hurricane is going on, it's like a pressure that goes on inside the church, and basically everything exploded. And so you're about to see where everything exploded to. Again, here's where they're meeting on Sunday mornings currently outside. This is just behind the sanctuary. One of the things we don't think about in the Midwest, but this is just piles and piles of trash. This does not include their pews. They're willing to donate their pews to anybody who's willing to drive to Pine Island and take them, but this is just piles and piles of trash that are all around their church. They got a bid originally of like $8,000 to come pick up all their trash, and then when the guy came and looked at it, he said, no, it's going to be more like 10, and they said, okay, and then he came back again, and he said, no, it's going to be more like 12, and then they said, well, when are you going to come and pick it up? And they said, sometime between May and June. If you think about this from their perspective, on an island, what are you going to do with your trash? You can't burn it. We have rules and regulations about that within the federal government. And again, I'm not going to get into the politics of it all, but you have to get all of that trash from that hurricane off of the island. And so It's a process, and you're going to see this. They are bringing in barges daily. People are just paid thousands and thousands of dollars to come haul off all of the trash. Now, the good news is that there were contractors while we were there, as you're going to see, as they've already been fixing everything up. And so most of these things will be gone by the time we get there. But I just wanted to show these to you as a way that you can see the devastation. But this is just along one of the sides of their sanctuary. Again, this is just their stuff. It's just been blown out and collected on the side and put away. This is their fellowship hall at the present, where they stop and have lunch. There's, I guess, the same photo. Here's the other side of the sanctuary where they've got more stuff just sitting out on the lawn. And so anybody thinks we're in disarray, they need to go to Pine Island with us and see what's going on there. But let's see. Okay, so here we go. I'm moving. So this is their sanctuary. As you can see, they haven't yet replaced the flooring, but they've got all the sheetrock hung. It's mud and taped. And they were actually, that day while we were there, starting the process of texturizing it so that it could be painted. All this will be done by the time we get there. They thought that they would be done with all of this within about a month and a half. But you can see kind of as they're plugging along, it's a complete rebuild. This is their fellowship hall area. It's a little bigger than it looks in the photo, but you can see they have a commercial kitchen back here, and then you could probably fit all of 150 to maybe close to 200 in the fellowship hall fairly comfortably. Okay. All right, now to the beach. This is a before photo of the northern side of Pine Island Beach that I found online. I know it's a little bit blurry, but this is what it looked like before. And this is what it looks like now. Everything is gone. There are no trees. You can't see very well in here, but all of these piers, you can kind of see on this one, all of these piers have been utterly destroyed and are unusable. Same here. You can't really see here. You can kind of see some cones they've got marked off where you can't walk on them. But literally everything is gone. There is no... This is no longer a usable vacation site. So those planning on going to the beach, we will go to Fort Myers Beach across the bridge. We will hang out at Fort Myers Beach. We will not hang out at Pine Island. I also should have showed you that because of the storm surge and stuff, all of this stuff laying around is sea wildlife that is just embedded and dead, and it's being washed away daily. But you can just kind of get a good idea of the destruction. This is the only restaurant left standing. That's why it's there. It's got a big Budweiser sign out front that's calling out to Cornerstone Baptist Church. That's why we put it in there. But that's it. All right, so here comes the northern end where we're going to be doing some work, and I know we'll talk about the schedule a little bit more as we go along. But this is the area that we're predominantly wanting to go in. We want to do some cleanup work, and we want to do a vacation Bible school with the kids while we're there. And it is a primarily Hispanic community. So I'm going to start with the not so gruesome and work our way towards some gruesome. But you can see it is a 7 block by 3 block trailer park. And they are mostly single wides. You have a few, I don't know if you call them campers, the things you pull behind us. And then there are a few double wides. I should highlight that all of these people that live in this trailer park area are Hispanic, and they are part of that Dreamer. And so as a direct result of that, they're really stuck here because there's one of two options. They either own their little trailer as their little piece of America, or if they don't own it, they rent it. And so after Hurricane Ian came through, whenever they had destruction, basically they go to the landlords and they say, hey, we would like to get this fixed. You need to get this fixed. And they said, we'll be glad to fix that for you, but we're going to raise your rent by $300 a month. And there's literally nothing they can do about it because where do they go? There's no option for them. And so it's just a really sad situation. Just out of curiosity, anybody want to guess what this little trailer here costs per month to rent? Anybody? Anyone? Any guesses? This trailer right here is $1,750 per month to rent. So that's one of the nicer ones. So I'll show you some more. This trailer here, there's 2 trailers here I wanted to show. This trailer here is one that the church did with a mission team in the past. You can see it looks a little bit nicer. I wish I had a better picture of it. Or is this the one? Oh, Miss Kelly thinks both of them. But anyway, the church we're going to, this is a regular part of their summer missions. They bring in summer mission teams and they do this work. So if you're getting intimidated, understand we're going to a group of people that know how to do this and do this regularly. We're just supplying the labor. What's that? Oh, yeah. I think Miss Kelly's telling me she took half these photos. You can see most of everything I'm going to show you has got tarps up here because they are still missing their roofs. And so they're just covered up. And there are people living in all of these right now. As we go along, I'll show you. You'll see some of our kids and stuff. Here's one of the trailers that didn't fare so well. And yes, there is somebody living in both of these trailers right now. We got to meet them. If you look really closely back behind, you'll see there's a tent back there, and that's where they're living right now because they don't have any other option. Let me keep going here. This, believe it or not, right here was a trailer before Hurricane Ian. It is gone. Nobody knows where it's at. It's just gone. It's disappeared on us. So anyway. But you can see some more trailers back here. You can just kind of see everything's covered in tarps. And again, because this is where the majority of casualties happen, because many of these people didn't speak English. They didn't understand what was going on. And those that did said, if I travel, what happens? Because they don't understand the law. They didn't understand whether they would be allowed back. And so many of them just stayed behind. And so they just rode it out. And I believe we have a picture of it. I'll see if I can show it to you when I find it. But we have a picture of one gentleman that comes to their church that rode the storm out. And literally when the storm was over, his trailer was 25 yards east of where it was previously. And he just rode it out. And they asked him, they said, what was that like? And he's like, it was okay. That was the only answer he had. But I believe this is the central office of the people who rent. I believe that's why we took that photo. I'm not really sure, but you can just kind of see, if you look into the trees and the destruction and stuff, you can begin to kind of see. This is one of the trailers that will be under consideration for our help. You can see, again, just tons and tons of destruction. Trash everywhere that they're trying to get moved out. I think this one was already in there. It's a double. See, you can see some of these trailers are much smaller. How much rent is this one? Anybody? Any guesses? The other was $1,750. It's one of the nicer ones. Anybody want to guess what this one is? It's $1,400. $1,400 a month for that little piece. And again, the people who are living here are working on palm tree farms, and they're making minimum wage. So if that puts it in perspective, you can kind of understand how impoverished they are. Here's some of the folks that were around as we were there while they were doing some work. Here's a young man. I'm guessing he's probably 10 to 11 years old. He's just hanging out. Many of them uneducated, don't have much experience. The school, I wish I'd gotten a photo of it, but the school is directly next door to the church that we're at. And so they are all educated. There's free education to them if they take it up. But again, because many of them don't understand and speak English well. I should have told you that a big part of the ministry at First Baptist Pine Island, they have a Hispanic pastor. And so it's a big part of the ministry that they do, which is why, obviously, they bring mission teams in every year to do this work. Here's one of the trailers, and we were there while this young lady was here doing some of the work. Her husband was at the palm tree farm, and she was just beginning the work of just kind of cleaning up. And it's kind of overwhelming to us, but it's where they're at. This is a trailer that was done a couple of years ago. I'm sorry. This is the trailer that was moved. It was originally out of the picture over here, and it got slammed into this tree right here and set down right there. And so that's why it's in there. And so you can just kind of see the destruction. It's amazing to me. It's not that different from the Midwest when a tornado comes through. It's amazing to me how some things are just left untouched, it seems like, and some of them are just destroyed. But you can kind of get an idea of the various destruction. Miss Kelly took this one. I'm not sure why you took it. I don't know.
It's the
Oh, this is one of the palm tree farms. Obviously, it was. They don't look very healthy right now, but that's one of the palm tree farms we were driving by. All right, that gets us to what is the work that we're going to do while we're there. And I'm giving you the ideal circumstances tonight, but I understand that part of these things ultimately come down to how many people come. Our ultimate goal is to do kind of two pieces of work while we're there, which is Vacation Bible School, and we would like to do light construction and painting. If you're worried about the construction side of things, I want to assure you that we have expressed our limitations, right, Mr. Todd? We've expressed our limitations to them. They understand that. They're not asking us to come down and to build a new house, okay? They understand, and the goal is that they would have the cleanup done at whatever trailers we go and help fix. The cleanup will be done. Sheetrock is hung. We are doing primarily just painting. That is the primary thing. Is it possible that we would get there and they would say, hey, could you help us build a deck? Sure, absolutely. But primarily, we're going there with the understanding that we're going to be doing interior and exterior painting. That is what we've expressed to them, they've agreed to, and that's what they're normally used to doing. The other side of it is that they had another mission team coming in, and now do not have that team coming in, and so they've asked if we had enough people, would we be willing to do a Vacation Bible School in this impoverished Hispanic area while we were there. And we said that if we could make that work, if we have enough people, then we would like to do that as well. And so basically the way that would work is that we would like to divide everybody into teams. At last count, we had roughly about 60 people who had said that they expressed interest. If we had 60 people, then basically what we would do is we would divide some into kind of cooking and meals and that preparation. We would divide others into doing primarily focusing on the construction, and others into primarily doing the Vacation Bible School. Now, the question that's already been asked of me is, if I'm on the meal team, does that mean that I don't get to go out and see the construction stuff? The answer is absolutely not. We want everybody to experience all of it to the best of your ability. Or if you're on the construction side of things, does that mean that I don't get to help with VBS? Absolutely not. That's not our ambition. In a perfect world, in my mind, this is how this looks. We get up in the morning, we do our Bible study, we have breakfast, we go out as a team, as a full force team, and we do our construction work in the morning. At lunchtime, when we stop and eat lunch, then those that are doing VBS will stop after lunch, take showers, get their materials ready, go down, get everything set up for VBS, which would be run in the evening. Those that are not doing that would go back and continue the construction stuff in the afternoon. Although it is very hot, it is very, very hot, and so we're not going to be going until 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You're talking about working until 2 or 3 o'clock when it hits the heat, the maximum heat, and stopping. And then those that were doing that would come back, take their showers, and go down and join the VBS people. But basically, if you were on the construction crew, let's say, you are not going to be responsible for organizing VBS. You're just going and hanging out while VBS is going on, if that makes any sense, okay? So that's how we want to try to divvy out the work. Or if you're a mom and you want to be on the cooking crew, which I hope not very many of the dads are, unless we got some great cooks that I don't know about. If you want to help with that, that doesn't mean that you're not going to get to be involved with everything else. We have every ambition to let you be involved with those things to the very best of our ability, okay? All right, I've covered a lot of ground. I know I haven't covered the big questions yet, but I've covered a lot of ground already. Any questions to this point that we can try to answer for you before I go any further? Anybody? So our primary areas of focus are light construction, painting, and Vacation Bible School. The big things that the pastor down there has stressed, and obviously they experienced this with their teams that have been there in the past. Sunscreen, 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 right? Long sleeve shirts that are SPF 50, like I have those Columbia fishing shirts. Those are great. There are horror stories. There are horror stories about mission teams that showed up and a kid said, "Oh, I don't ever burn." And they were taking him to the emergency room because they were blistered up. Because it's not only hot, but imagine you're outside painting a metal trailer. That sun is beating off of the trailer and back onto you. And so, no heroes, sunscreen, 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 sunscreen. And if possible, get some of those SPF shirts and wear those. And if you're looking for them, they're really cheap on Belk right now. They're like $10 a piece. So I just happened to order one the other day. So they're really, really cheap on Belk right now. So any questions, guys? Sorry, I was kind of jamming on. All right. Let's get to the big question. Everybody wants to know, how much is it going to cost? How are we going to get there? Before I reveal anything, I want to be abundantly clear. I got mamas in the room that are used to operating on a budget. You're going to say to me, I can feed for cheaper than that. I hope you can. What we did on this budget as we laid these prices out is I went for the maximum price so that I was not coming back to you 2 months from now and saying, "Oh, I told you it was going to be $200, but it's going to be $400 a person." I figured it was much better for me to say to you today, it's going to be $400 a person, and then come back and say, no, it's $320 a person. I figured that was a much better scenario. So we have started at the top, and we can work our way down from there, okay? And also, before I say anything else, I want to say, Cornerstone Baptist Church has always been people who are very generous. It is not our desire for money to be an issue for anybody to go on the trip that wants to go on the trip. All right? And I hear my heart on this. If there's somebody that needs to go on the trip, that the Lord would have us to take on the trip, and money gets in the way, I promise you, money will not be in the way. We will take care of it. We will find a way. There are already people who have reached out and said, "Hey, how can I give? How can I support?" And I'm sure that they're not done. But I'm operating right now as I go through all of these things on the basis that no extra donations are coming in. I'm just giving you the cost and breaking them down on a per person cost basis, all right? All right, so how much it costs and how we get there, or how much it costs is really determined by how we get there. And there's basically 4 different ways we can do this. So I've broken them down, and I'm going to start with what doesn't change. Housing is $0. Here's why. The church, normally when mission teams come, everybody just stays at the church. There's plenty of room at the church. The good news is it's been completely renovated. Furthermore, the good news of the church is that the North American Mission Board, because this is something that they deal with a lot, has donated 2 shower trailers. And so you have shower trailers that are on site, if you've ever done disaster relief, that are on site ready to be used. What it means is that we need to bring sleeping bags, cots, and things like that. Now, that situation doesn't work for everybody, and I understand that. And we've already had some families reach out that said, "I just couldn't do that." There are a limited number of families at Pine Island First Baptist Church that will make their homes available in situations where that makes sense, okay? But I don't want that to be an excuse for every person to say, "I can't stay at the church, I'm not," and so they don't do it. So somebody automatically says, "I'd like to get a hotel." I will say to you that if you can get a hotel and you're willing to pay for it, you have my blessing. I will support you 100%. Here's the problem. Miss Kelly and I went down there to visit and to get a hotel for one night. We got a hotel at Holiday Inn next to the airport in Fort Myers, and it was $532. Why? Because every hotel is booked out by construction workers. It's not a matter of us saying, "We don't want to get you hotels." It is, there are no hotels on Pine Island. All of the hotels are in Fort Myers, and there is so much construction work being done, it is hard to get a hotel. So if you want to book a hotel, I would suggest that you book that hotel right now and understand you're going to pay for it, and understand you have my blessing. I will support you. In fact, I will support you so much that I will come and stay in your room while we're there, okay? I will be that happy to support you in that, okay? All right, but that's just the reality of the situation. But the church has made themselves available. We would have to bring cots, sleeping bags, and things like that. Unless you don't want to, if you don't want to sleep on a hard floor, you got to bring a cot. I would recommend on Amazon, they sell these things called beach loungers, which are not beach loungers. You actually run with them, and they fill up with air. And we have 5 of them, and they're like $15, and they are so stinking comfortable. And you can travel with them, just don't put them somewhere where they're going to get a hole poked in them, but they are so comfortable. You literally just send the kid to run with them in the air for about 10 yards and then roll up the end of it, and it's just like an inflatable bed. They're like $15, $20. You can get them in pairs for like $35, $40. They're on Amazon, all right? Right? Am I pretty close about that? All right. She's like, I don't know. Just move on. But anyway, so housing doesn't cost us anything as a part of the trip. Food estimates. We gave $35 a day, and I went back and forth as to why I was going to tell you or not tell you how that broke down. Here's what we did. I said $7 per person for breakfast. I said $10 for lunch and $18 per person for dinner. The reason why is because, with it being so hot, you're not going to eat a big breakfast. You're probably not going to eat a big lunch. But we do want to make sure that we feed everybody well at dinner time. Now, I got lots of mamas in the rooms, and you say, I can feed people for a lot cheaper than $18 for dinner. That's why you need to be on the cooking committee, all right? But I will tell you that I would rather plan on it until we get closer to it, because again, how many grocery stores are on the island? 1. And I'm telling you that things are higher there than you're anticipating, because again, to get stuff to that grocery store is not an easy task. We followed those semis in. It is not an easy task getting them across the bridge. So the economy reflects that. Things are a little higher at that Publix grocery store than they are when you run over to Walmart in Sedalia. So that's why we did it that way, okay? So we plan on $35 a day, and that's the basis, and so on and so forth, okay? All right, so then we get to travel plan A. Now, this is based on 50 people. That is 5 vans getting us down there, because we don't want to pack those 15-passenger vans full. We have 3 vans that have been graciously donated to us that we do not have to rent. 2 of them coming from Hermitage First Baptist Church. The 3rd would be coming from the Ditzfeld, from Steve Ditzfeld. Affectionately, the girls' golf team calls it Black Lightning. Parents, you want to be in that one. It's the most comfortable of the bunch. 2 other vans that roughly cost us $1,600 a week from Enterprise. And 1 follow vehicle, and then that gives us our gas estimate as well at about $3,600. In that plan, our original conversation, which is open for debate, is to leave on July the 14th, that's a Friday, after everybody gets off work, later in the evening, where basically we would drive it in a straight shot. It's about 18 to 20 hours, depending on which van you let the pastor drive, all right? He might have a lead foot, but it's 18 to 20 hours to get down there. The thought process being is, do you want to have 2 bad days of driving for 10 hours, or do you want to have 1 really bad day? And the idea was that if we left in the evening, a kind of a vacation day, a nice day at the beach, hang out. There would be a few of us guys that need to go do some work, and by work I mean we need to go pick up some items for the week, but nothing major. We'd go pick up some items for the week, but everybody else would go have a nice beach day and relax and chill, and there's no work to be done, okay? Then we would work in that 7x3 block area from the 16th. We would work the 17th, the 18th, the 19th, and if necessary, the morning of the 20th. That would be Thursday morning. And then by Thursday lunchtime, we would take off and go to Gulf Shores, and we would spend Thursday evening at Gulf Shores, Friday at Gulf Shores, and then drive that remaining 12 hours, 13 hours on Saturday back to the church. So one of the things I like to do on a mission trip is bookend it with pleasure, fun, because I think it's a good way to kind of get everybody's batteries reset, both for the week in front of them, but also, hey, man, I just walked out of some things I wasn't expecting, and so on and so forth. So under that schedule, we would have $157.50 per person for food. We'd have the vehicles and gas breaks down to $136 per person. The hotels, because we have hotels the name's Gulf Shores, which are not cheap at present. We may be able to make them cheaper, but just cursory glances, about $130, and that leaves us with a price of $423.50 per person. That is with the church putting in roughly $10,000 already just for the materials to do the work. So I want you to understand why I didn't take anything off there per person, all right? What we would like to do, and this goes for all of them, is we would like to do this in installments. Basically, sometime in April, everybody would pay $100 per person. Sometime in May, we would do the same thing. Sometime in June, and then the final payment would be in July. And that way, as we get closer, as if we find out some things are going to be cheaper than we'd originally planned, we may even make that final payment after the trip is over. That way, if some things are cheaper, we can take them off and say, hey, it only really cost us $300 a person, so it's just $300 a person. Make sense? All right? So that's why we're going to do it that way. All right, Plan B. Plan B is probably not a good plan at all, but I'm throwing it out there for you. Steve Ditzfeld got me in contact with a guy out of Colombia. He knocked 25% off of his price, and that would be to take a charter bus. Basically, the charter bus would take everybody down in one shot. We wouldn't have multiple vehicles. We wouldn't have multiple drivers. We just have a charter bus that gets us there, carries all of our luggage. The bus cost us $15,800. We'd have to rent a couple of vehicles when we got down there. That's why you see 2 vehicles for $500. And then you have the same travel schedule as Plan A. Again, leaving Friday night. That's the way they want to do it. Returning the next Saturday. Cost per person is $157.50 for food, same as we already outlined. Vehicles and gas, $326. Hotel, $130, and that gets us to a grand total of $613.50. The only reason I include this is because the one positive to all this is the church's liability goes down extensively because we're not driving, we're not doing anything. This is all done by somebody else, and it makes our lives a little bit easier. But the cost of it. Let's go to Plan C, flying. This one may surprise you that it is not that much more expensive than Plan A. I also want to say this is a game of Russian roulette. The group rate right now, when I set this week at Southwest Airlines, is $290. The first rate they quoted me was $325. Those rates will go down as we get closer to July. At some point, they will cease to go down. But not only will they cease to go down, right now, we can book out an entire plane and get everybody on one flight. As we get closer to that date, we're not going to be able to do that. And so I'm merely throwing these things out and understanding that, hey, it's there. If this is what we want to do, we can make it work, okay? We have to, in order to get that rate, we have to have at least 25 passengers booked by flight, okay? The schedule change would create some opportunity. It would save us some money in a couple of areas. We would leave on Saturday, July the 15th instead of Friday. We would return on Friday, July the 21st, and our bookend days at the beach would be Saturday and Sunday at Fort Myers, and Thursday afternoon and Friday before the flight at Fort Myers as well. So we would not be doing all of that traveling. We just fly in and out of Fort Myers. And so that's there. So the food for that actually goes down slightly because we're there less days. That's $140 per person. Airfare is $290 to $320, as I highlighted up there. Hotel is $65 because the hotels, we found an Airbnb that they are willing to work with us. They have condos, 3-bedroom condos that we can put a number of people in. $65 because we're not doing 2 nights, and the total cost there is $495 to $525, depending on what the airfare rate gets. I'm going to tell you, if we decide to go to Plan C, the preacher is going to be checking the airfare rate about every day come April and watching for the absolute lowest rate, and then we're going to book it and get after it. And so that's the way we would do that. Again, same thing. We do this in installment payment plans. Pay $100 in April, pay $100 in June, pay $100 in May, and then that final payment, or whatever it would be, whether it's June or July, that final payment would be reflective of the actual cost. And so if it's less than this, which I presume it will be, then we make adjustments, okay? Plan D. Plan D is, some of you have said, hey, I can do all that travel cheaper than that. Hey, I want to bookend it with my vacation. Even the Guffeys are considering that. Maybe I want to go to Daytona for the week before, or I want to stay and go to Daytona the week after. In Plan D, you get yourself there, and all you do is pay for the food for the week. So you give us $157.50 for each individual person for their food, and you get yourself there. Does that make sense? Because I know a number of families have said, hey, if I'm going all the way to Florida, I want to try to bookend it with my personal vacation. I totally get that. I understand that. I want to support you in that. I was telling Todd this week, actually, the best of all worlds is if about half the people did this and half the people wanted to travel, because it would eliminate how many vans we had to rent. And so that would actually be the best of all worlds if that's what happened. So if you say, hey, I want to do my own vacation, either the front or the back end of it, that's great. All we ask you to do is pay roughly, at this point, $157.50 for the food for the week. And again, if the costs are cheaper than that, then we will give that to you. Likewise, if somebody in the church makes a donation, I think there's one particular individual that approached me this morning. Wouldn't surprise me if they gave $5,000 or $6,000. What we will do with that $5,000 or $6,000 is if we got 50 people get $100 knocked off of their cost on the trip. We're going to be, fair about that and just take it right across the board. All right. So I've given you the max cost on this. I hope you hear my heart in these two things in saying, I think we will do it a little bit cheaper. And secondly, please don't let money get in the way. If money is the issue, come talk to me, and I promise you I will be an advocate, and if we can make it work, right, Mr. Todd, we will make it work, because we believe this is such a great experience for you and your kids. Go ahead, Rob.
As far as parking, if we were to do Plan D, how would that be able to accommodate?
So, yes. There are, let me see if I answer this question the best way. So there's a limited parking at the church. It does, they have 180 people, so it's got parking for that. But then directly across the street is the school. It's got a parking lot, so you can park there. If in that question you're wondering about vehicles, the church owns 3 vans as well. So that's why we were only renting 2 trucks if we were taking the charter, because we're going to utilize their vehicles that are there as well, if that makes any sense. What else? Any other questions?
Chris, on Plan A or whatever, we were talking about a couple hotel options, or hotel nights. What are the 2 nights you're talking about hotel costs on the first option?
Gulf Shores.
Both nights?
Thursday night, Friday night. On the way back, Thursday night, Friday night. Gulf Shores is, anybody like the Kelly and I have never been to Gulf Shores. She went to Miramar Beach. I've never been to Gulf Shores. Gulf Shores is actually one of the more expensive places to stay. It's hard to find, but it's a nice beach. It's family friendly from what I understand. Some heads, I've never been there. Family friendly. Let me put it to you like this. Preacher is cheap. But he also is not going to put you in a rat hole. So I guarantee you that we will do everything within our power to drive these costs down, I literally went and found the most expensive things I could and said, I'm quoting at this price so that I make sure that I do not come back to you a month from now and say, it's going to be more than this. I want to make sure that I get you to smile at me and say, oh, it's, $75 per person. I believe that if you went with plan A, so to speak, and we were all doing plan A, and I really hesitate to say this out loud, I think we're going to find a way to do it for about $325 a person. I think when the mamas go grocery shopping and decide how they want to cook and all of those things, I think when we get into booking our hotels and all of that, I think we can shave about $100 per person.
So we're not getting back on the 22nd. We're actually leaving Florida on the 22nd.
We'll get back. No, we're on the 22nd. We would be leaving Gulf Shores. Early in the morning, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever. It's 12, 13 hours. Somebody's been there, is that right? 13 hours, about 13 hours. You've been there? All right. Personally, I would love to fly. I mean, that's, the idea, having coached golf for 10 years and spent a lot of time in vans with kids, like I have zero desire to be in a van with a kid, but I'm suffering for Jesus, I would love to fly, and that's great. And I want to say, it doesn't going to be flexible. Really, the best of all worlds is if about half wanted to do one thing and the other half wanted to do something else. It would mean that we didn't end up having to rent any vans to drive down there. If we only had to take 3 vans down, we have to rent 0 vans. That wipes $3,200 in cost right off the bat. Does that make sense? And so I think I've already made this point enough, but I'll be very generous, very giving. Please don't let money get in the way. We will do our best to make it work. We will do our best to support you. We're not doing a youth camp this summer because we're tying youth camp into this trip. Our plan is in the evenings to do kind of some hangout time with our students. I'll probably do some devotions. Maybe our youth leadership will do the devotions. I'm not really sure exactly what that looks like. As a former youth pastor for, 7, 8 years before I came here, these are the sweetest moments I've ever had. I mean, getting to hang out with the kids late at night, doing devotions and just hanging out and talking, you cannot replace those. They are so precious, and I probably have some videos somewhere of some of the goofy things that happen late at night. And our kids always came back worn out and tired, but I can tell you that over the years, the kids that went on those trips still love Jesus today. And many of those kids that did not go on those trips with me have wandered from the faith. I can say that sincerely and honestly. The evidence of that is back in the booth in Pastor Tim. The students that went on those trips, they were life-altering for them. I should add, I guess, a couple of notes about, I thought I had some other pictures in here, but I can't find them. I thought I had pictures of the bridge when we went across it, but when Todd and I talked to Pastor Jim said, this is like going into a third world country. I spent 6 weeks in India back in 2016. I have gone to India 7 times. I've been Nicaragua, Africa. I have, as somebody who has months and months in third world countries, it is not a third world country. Having said that, I will say that the destruction was far more than I was expecting when we went down there. We helped with Hurricane, I don't remember which one it was, Ivan, that went through Houston a few years back. I think it was Ivan. There was a group from our church that went down and helped do that, helped clean up and do that. I was expecting something like that, and this was far worse. Ian was bad. and the loss of life and property in Pine Island is just hard to wrap your minds around. So with that said, this is as close as I can get to taking your kid to India with me. This is as close as I can get to taking your kid to Nicaragua or one of those third world countries. And I believe that when they get that opportunity to see it, it will give them a whole new perspective. Miss Kelly and I have said this before. I'll say it. I won't throw any stones at anybody else's kids. My kids are spoiled rotten. They have no idea how the other side of the world lives. And I'm looking forward to them seeing it. I'm looking forward to them with their own eyes. You cannot replace, I could take opportunity. I'm prepared that if we have 20 people to go with 20. I would love to have more than that. I think our ideal number is somewhere between 45 and 55. But if we have 60, we're going to take 60. We're going to take whoever wants to go. And we're going to do our best to make it work. Okay? Any questions? I forget anything? Yeah, go ahead. Child care is not provided. There would not even really be, there would be no way to do it. The best thing I can say about child care would be if we had a group of ladies that were all cooking, or a group of men and ladies that were cooking and said, hey, I don't mind, we can do the best we can there. Yeah. Yeah. That does raise up an interesting point. Somebody had asked me about if you've done hurricane relief before, I think they call it sludge and things like that. That's all gone. This has been cleaned out by this point. You're not on the front end of this trip. So you shouldn't run into toxins and things like that. One of the things they will do before we get there and prep for these trailers, from the exterior standpoint, they wash them all down with this acid stuff. I don't know. He gave me a big, long scientific explanation. So that when we arrive, you're not dealing with those types of things. You're just dealing with essentially painting it, for lack of a better way to say it. I'm getting a few nod of heads from some men. Wes, do you have any idea if I just said any better? Somebody that's a construction person at all? No help. Thanks. God bless you. I love you too, buddy. But we're not concerned about masks and things like that and needing those things. Hazmat suits, no. We're not on the cleanup stage. That stage is virtually done. That's why there's all the trash outside. We're on the put everything back together stage. And primarily, the sheetrock and all that stuff is going to be done before we get there. And you say, man, that church looks rough. It does, but they're moving along, and I have every assurance and belief. They actually have one of their contractors that's staying on site right now. So Pine Island will be put together, and we'll be in good shape. It's possible we may go do a little bit of work in the school. As a community service project, paint some rooms. That was one thing that was mentioned, but there was no finality to it. Anything else? I'm sure I've missed a lot. So there are multiple rooms across the building. So ideally, we're going to divide obviously by gender, and it will be a safe environment. But I can't say you're going to be in 101 and you're going to be in 102. But there are ample rooms. Typically what I've done historically when I've done these types of trips is we put the men in the bigger rooms, and we've just kind of suffered for Jesus together with all of those smells. And we've taken the ladies and divided them up into smaller groups and put them in the smaller rooms so that was, more comfortable for them. I assume something like that. But those are choices we'll make, on site when everybody's there. Room, if that answers the question, if that's the case, dibs on the sanctuary. Calling it right now, all right? No, the fellowship hall. We want the fellowship hall. Fellowship hall. Dibs on the fellowship hall. That's where the food will be, Well, would have been. What else? Any other questions? There's plenty of room. There's plenty of room. Again, these guys host mission groups every year. They are accustomed to doing this. You got nothing to worry about. I know it's overwhelming, but they're used to doing this. You got to worry about having a neck ache because you slept on a hard floor.
They were all carpeted.
They're all carpeted.
Pretty and clean because it's all brand new. Because everything had to be
Yeah,
ripped out.
noticeably, we didn't take any pictures of the rooms that were done. We only took pictures of the rooms that were not done. Sorry about that.
It was nice. It wasn't
There
scary.
are a number of rooms. About half of the back side of the church is already completed. And I have no idea why we didn't take any photos of the rooms that are done. But we didn't. Yeah, we wanted to keep the expectations low. That's a good point. What else? They're all carpeted. You won't need to worry about heat, I promise. Did you have one? Go ahead. Yeah. Yep. I see no reason we can't. No restrooms. There's like this series of big bushes, Elena. No, they have plenty of restrooms on site. We'll be okay. Yeah, no, you're fine. Now, I don't know whether I should tell this or not. I was waiting. I was kind of keeping this one in my hip pocket, and just planning on surprising you in such a positive way. Don't say it. One of the shower trailers does not have. It has a generator to heat water, but but the pastor says to me, the water's so warm, most people don't really ever turn that stuff on anyway. So I assume that the water's heated. It's heated, I promise. I promise. But it is so hot, and we don't think about those things here, but it's so hot. This water in those trailers comes in from tanks, and so the water is hot. And so you don't really need to heat it anymore. But then I made a comment about the guys, and he said, well, the last time they just held up a shower curtain, and some of the guys were just being hosed off, and I was like, let's not tell any of that to Cornerstone Baptist Church, all right? But there are 4 big NAM donated shower trailers, and we're in good shape. And Wes is going to bring his camping shower as well. Surely you've got one of those. You've got everything, right? Yeah. I actually have one of those from elk hunts in the past. I have one of those portable showers. Maybe I'll bring that for Kelly and I. But it sounds terrible. It's not, I promise. All right? And let me make a further promise. The Guffeys, we are as hoity-toity as they come. So if we're not satisfied when we get there, we'll all pitch in and find a hotel that will rent us a shower, and we'll take turns doing it, all right? And we'll do it for Jesus, right? Right, Megan Page? Megan's like, leave me out of this.
I'm good.
We can do this. Yeah.
Been there, done that.
You know what? Megan, let's just make a pact right now. You and I, we're not taking a shower the whole week. Amen? All right, what else? Anything else? Oh, yeah, now y'all think this is funny. I believe there's 8 showers between the 2 trailers. I don't know if that helps everybody out. There's 8 showers between the 2 trailers, and then there are 2 showers in the church. So there are 10 total showers. So that means you have a rotation of 5 people per shower, not at the same time. Surely 10 showers can take care of, and that's if we have 50 people. Surely 10 showers ought to get the job done. What else? And again, when you divide into teams, that's part of why you do that. So VBS teams are going to be taking showers at one time. Construction people are going to be coming back and taking showers at a later time. And so we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We'll bring some Buck soap, and we're going to get this done. We don't need to bring anything with us. If we do need to bring something with us, we will make that known in advance, and we will talk to Wes Geyer, because Wes has got everything, right? He's like, no, don't bring me into this. We will talk to Wes and Cameron. Okay, we'll talk to Angie. We'll talk to Angie Geyer. No, at this moment, I don't anticipate us needing any tools. Yeah, really 3.5. Throwing away. Throw it in the piles. One thing we could do to if you guys want to do this, what are those military leaf? So NAM, North American Mission Board. So if you guys wanted to cut the cost down, we could cut the cost down by $157 per person and just eat MREs the entire time. Amen? Hey, listen, I don't need to hear about all that, all right? Yeah, no, they have meals. Salisbury steak, rice and chicken. Listen to the military guys getting all serious about this, all right? Yo. Let me tell you about Miss Kelly and the MREs. So Pastor Jim says, hey, you need to take these back and tell them this is what they're going to be eating, and that'll be real funny, you know. And he hands them to us, and I don't even remember now what the 2 MREs were. What were they? Like, one was like a meatball and Salisbury steak. And so we threw them in the rental car. And when we went to drop the rental car off, I was like, do you want to take these back and show them to everybody? And she's like, they're disgusting. I don't want to see those things. Just throw them away. So they did not even make it back to Missouri for a practical joke. But they look so good. You know, I mean, all that tinfoil. The picture on the top of it looked great, you know. A little salt and pepper and Tabasco sauce, and we got it made. What else? Anything else? Well, we could decide that right now, if we so chose. I was going to say, I want to do it somewhat democratically. Let me put it to you like this. I believe where we're at is A, C, or D. You're either getting yourself there, that's D, we're flying, or we're driving. It's really that simple. I don't think the charter bus is a good option. So with that said, quick show of hands, how many would prefer to drive? And then conversely, I'll ask how many would prefer to fly. How many would prefer to drive? Just quick show of hands, all right? Looking, how many would prefer to fly knowing that roughly you can anticipate the costs are going to be $80 to $100 more per person? All right, I got a couple. What I'll say is that if ultimately we have 25 people that want to fly and everybody else that wants to drive, we'll do that. Or even if we don't have 25, if you decide, hey, I'm going to fly and I'm going to meet you there, basically at that point, you just need to tell us that and we'll take you off of that side. You just pay for meals and you're on plan D. Does that make sense? So it sounds to me like we're on plan A unless you decide that you want to pay to fly yourself down there, in which case we'll just adjust. All right? Are we done? Go ahead.
Well, I'm just kind of thinking a little bit, that plan A, part of your large cost of that was getting some additional enterprise revenue, right?
Yeah.
Now, possibly,
Well, correct. That's what I was saying. Like, really, the best of all worlds is if we had, 15, 20 people that said, hey, we're just going to fly and meet you down there. And then everybody else drove the van, Sarah's like, I'm volunteering right in this moment. Sarah, I'll fly with you. Yeah, so you're just paying the $157 for food and nothing else.
Or if we have one that's going to drive a vehicle and one that's going to fly.
That's on you. Yeah, it sounds to me like basically where we're at is we're going with plan A. Does this sound where everybody else is at? And then if you choose to fly or you choose to tag it on with your vacation, you're on plan D on your own. Does that make sense?
So if we choose to drive ourselves, we still wanted to buddy up with you guys for the 2 days in Gulf Shores. Would you be able to count it?
Yeah, we'll just take the cost when we get to the hotel and the final deposit. We'll just say, hey, here's what it's going to cost, and we'll just pass that on at that point.
So with the flying,
Hang on one second, Sarah. Coming back to you.
sorry,
No, you're good.
with the flying, that price though is solely based off if you can get 25 people.
Yes. Now, here's the thing I'm going to say about flying. So I was disappointed with the group rate that they quoted me from Southwest, because when Kelly and I flew down there, we flew Southwest, and it ended up costing us, I booked our flight about 2 weeks out, and it was $317 with taxes included. So even though they claim they're giving me a discount at this rate, I mean, yeah. I'm anticipating that they're going to go down considerably as we get closer, but the big mess with the group rate is that as you wait longer and longer, you may end up with 15 people leaving at 6:30 a.m., 15 people leaving at 8:10 a.m. And as long as everybody's okay with driving themselves to the airport at different times, then it makes me no difference. But that's why I say it sounds to me like we're kind of going with plan A. And then anybody that wants to do something different, you're basically on plan D. And if you want help booking flights, I'm more than willing to help with that. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, absolutely. No, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, we'll divide it out when we get to that point. We'll just say, hey, your kids did this, so you pay this for them, and you guys did this, you pay this for you. Absolutely. That's actually a really good question. And personally, I plan on sending my family on the vans, and I'm going to fly, because I believe my family needs the experience. Amen. So, with Troy or with Todd, I believe they need the experience with Todd. What else? So, everyone's clear on what we're doing. We've kind of made up our mind. We're going to go with plan A. We're going to drive. But then if you want to fly or you want to tag it on to your family vacation, then you are essentially on plan D. What that means is, what we need to know is really, I'm going to say within, are you hanging with me, Mr. Lewis, within the next 2 to 3 weeks? When's kind of a time we need to know? Because the issue at hand is going to be making sure we have enough vans to get there. What are we thinking? Like 3-4 weeks, we kind of need a firm commitment from everybody? A month?
I think by the end of this month. I think by April 1, we for sure need to know.
So if we said April 1, we need a firm commitment. April 15th, we need the first deposit. Make it tax day. Thank you, Megan. Make it tax day. Okay, we'll do the 16th. April 16th, you got to make the first deposit. Is that fair for everybody? Does that give you ample opportunity to figure out what you're doing? Yes? And we'll make that first deposit. I think it's just easy enough to say $100 per person. Is that good with you, Todd? There are a couple pieces, again, that vary. I based our gas taxes on you know, where they were at the day we shot this, gas prices have gone down a little bit. Again, groceries can be a little bit cheaper. Spend $18 per person for dinner. I get that. One piece that is kind of hanging out there that could save us a considerable amount is that the Enterprise in Sedalia is not open on Saturdays and Sundays. So the reason that it is $1,600 per van is because we're actually renting them from Friday to the following Monday, and we're paying for 3 extra days. So if we had somebody who was willing to drive to Warrensburg or somewhere where I could get them and take them back on a Saturday and check them back, that would save us some money. So there are a few ways we can save a few dollars here and there. Again, my hope is to get it down to about $350 a person. That's really my hope. I feel bad, you know, saying less than that at this particular moment, but I think I feel comfortable saying we could get there pretty close. I should add one little addendum. If you got little kids that aren't going to eat $18 worth of dinner, come talk to me. Like I get it. Like like George is not going to eat $18 worth of dinner. It's not really costing us that much more for that, and so you know, this little fella is not going to eat an $18 dinner. Well, he may, but the point is, like, common sense goes a long ways. When I gave you those figures, I'm basing them off teenagers that are going to eat me out of house and home, Miss Carrie, right? I'm basing them off of those things. So if you have questions about that, come talk to me, and I'm gonna do my best to work it out. Okay?
So Chris, I was just kind of thinking, you know, I mean, we're gonna have X number of breakfasts, X number of lunch, X number of dinners that we need to plan. It might be wise to go ahead and get that plan now and just go ahead and establish what those meals are.
Yeah. Once we get everybody signed up, we can break them into teams. And then those that are doing meals can say, let's sit down and have a planning meeting and work that out.
Well, I was just thinking that might be something, and if you could go purchase a lot of that stuff on the front end of it that was non-perishable and take with you, and it might just kind of help with some of that.
Maybe. If 50 people at 5 vans, it's a very limited amount of cargo space as we are. You know, we're at 50 people in 5 vans, you're putting 10 people in 15 passenger vans. That's not the most comfortable in the world. You're leaving space there. So I'm not sure that I'm really wanting to get to a place where we're dragging everything down.
I was also going to think too, do you want to look at the option of maybe using one of the vans to fill a trailer to help?
Yeah, don't give me that look. I was not going to tell this part. We have a trailer that has been donated, a covered trailer, and one of the vans has a hitch, and we are planning on taking a trailer. I had not planned on releasing that because when we went down there for a week or for 5 days, I took a duffel bag, and Miss Kelly took my other checked-in bag, my 2 other checked-in bags with Southwest, and her own 2 checked-in bags. And so, like, Miss Kelly, I would fill up that trailer if everybody knew about it. So I was planning on telling you, you get, and then surprising you and being like, oh, we got a little extra room, throw stuff in here. We do already have a trailer coming with us and a van that has a hitch on it. Again, though, I'm not sure, this is a lot of people, I'm not sure how I feel about dragging food down there. I'm not sure because I don't need the trailer, it's going to burn some gas. It's a lot of miles. And so if I can keep from having to drag that trailer, I'm not sure that dragging food down there is going to be cost effective for the little more I might have to pay for it on the island. So Yeah, it's a big grocery store. I mean, it's for the whole island, so I would presume that they'll have most everything we need. But again, once we get a firm commitment from everybody, we can divide into teams and we can let all those folks sort that stuff out however they want. So we'll kind of go on that kind of schedule of like April 15th, first deposit, May 15th, second deposit, June 15th, third deposit, and then it will either be you've paid everything you needed, or it will be at that point we'll say we need $62 per person. Does that make sense? And we're looking at $100 for each of those. Nothing says you can't write a check for the entire amount in April. You want to do that, that's great. Just saying we're going to do it that way. Refund it, yes, to a degree, but when we get to a certain level down the road and we've already begun to make purchases, send some money ahead, because we'll be sending money ahead to First Baptist Pine Island to do some things for us in advance. When we get to that point, it's going to be, I'm sorry if you can't go, we're not going to be able to give it back, which I think is reasonable. All right. Any other questions? I want to, I don't want to keep you any longer than I need to, but I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. If you have any special needs with regard to, hey, you say, I've got, a little baby and I need to not be at the church, something like that, talk to me. Homes are available. They've said they can make a few. And we absolutely will, because it helps everybody. It frees up showers. So, I presented it worst case scenario here, and we'll work from there. Anything else? All right. I don't have a sign up on the app. We'll ask Miss Liana to put one on there, I suppose. But in order to sign up, we'd like you to sign up by April 1st, and we'd like the first deposit April 15th, which would be $100 per person. In order to do that, see Mr. Todd Lewis, Todd Girl, or Scott James. The three of you guys keep a running list, and we'll communicate from there. Okay? As far as your deposit goes, you can do it one of two ways. You can either give it to Todd, and he'll make sure it gets in the offering plate. If you make a check, you can put a check in the offering plate and put in the memo line, youth mission trip or mission trip, something that lets us know what it is. I think if you go on the app, you can click the tab missions, but I'm not 100% certain. Or if you're at all nervous that it's not getting where it's supposed to be, see me and I'll make sure it gets where it's supposed to be.
So we're just making sure it gets to the offering plate.
You can. It would be my preference that you didn't do it that way, that you would go ahead and give it to Todd or myself, just so, we're not hounding you down and saying, Todd Girl, why haven't you given your deposit? It would be easier that way for us. Give it to Todd Lewis. I know nobody wants the preacher to see your giving, so give it to Todd.